I've only just realised that the camera wasn't working. Oh dear, I've got to start all over again. This is peculiar. Oh gosh. Well, I will start with a little story about, just briefly to introduce myself. It was my birthday on Sunday, a big, big birthday. And I sat here waiting, thinking, would there be flowers coming my way? I didn't have any presents or any flowers. So eventually I sent an email to my daughter, do I need to wait in? And she actually wrote back, well, she had written earlier to say, I'm not sending you anything because the bouquet I sent you in March for Mother's Day was to cover today as well. She's not a hard up woman, she's quite wealthy actually, but it seemed to her she wanted one bouquet to do two jobs, and it wasn't a terribly special bouquet, it was okay, but not for a big birthday. So I was a little depressed, and I'm feeling still a little depressed now actually. So I'm going to talk about two lifetimes. I want to say that when I talk about lifetimes, or when anybody does, you're not that person now. You would have been that person, king, queen, beggar, whatever, dancer. You would have had that personality then, but when you die, you leave that behind, and it's called a magical body. So you carry on the soul you are to try another magical body, and you have it for that lifetime, and then it's like having a car. You just get out, shut the door, say bye-bye. So if anyone's travelling on the inner planes and come across these magical beings, they're not real, they're illusion. So in my two stories, one was very real in this lifetime, but I wasn't him, he was somebody else. And the second one, I was him. Right, so let's see what time it is, if it's still working. Oh, it's working now, I think. I ought to keep these glasses on really and overcome my pride, although they're a bit steamed up. So anyway, the first one was called Ken. He was a partner in this lifetime, a soulmate. I still haven't quite worked out what it was all about, although I think it's obviously about releasing a lot of emotional stuff that we carry, It's a very difficult emotional. He wasn't emotional, sex obsessed. So this video is a little bit upsetting perhaps, because he was a little bit weird. I'm not talking about sex, I'm talking about the violence and the blood. He was emperor, that's right, we were in Malta on holiday, and for some reason I said to him, who were you in a past life? Now, he wasn't into any of this sort of thing like me. He never didn't believe in it all. He said, I was Emperor Commodus. Now, Commodus was a very rare emperor. He's not one that's talked about a great deal, though I think he's in the film, The Gladiator, isn't he? He's the one that liked the games and was a very disturbed sort of man. He was really quite obsessed with sex and money. So when Emperor Commodus met me in his court, I was a juggler. My dad's a juggler and he fancied me, so he bought me. And so sexually we were hit. It was fantastic, well I can remember it was. But of course he turned nasty in the end, and he began to beat me up. Quite nastily actually, until I almost died. Get me well, beat me up again. And he used to go out into the streets and drug the girls in for sex. He was really quite obsessive and violent. And when I met him in this lifetime, my first meeting with him, somebody said, are you sure you want to be with this man? I didn't know what they meant. I can't say he was violent in this lifetime. I don't think he was. He was very meek, very mild, but he was certainly still obsessed with sex. And he's the one that went astray in my previous video called The Prostitute, or one like it. And he was very repressed, because I think in this lifetime he had to learn to be not so, royal, although he tried to be. But he was a very strange man, and I think he died by poisoning, or was it in the astronaut? Someone tried to poison him, but he actually died in the bath, and hence in this lifetime he hardly ever washed. He wouldn't get in a bath. He was frightened of water. So I said, well, who was I? Well, he said, you were the juggler, you were my servant, and he died, and I flew myself on the funeral pyre, apparently. I think he might have made that up. But the Emperor Commodus, what a man, really, what a character. So only he has been to see me once or twice in spirit, and I said, go away. I've had enough of you and all your peculiar games. What a game player. What a game player. I think he must have been the nastiest man I have ever met. Thank God I didn't marry him. There's a whole story about this, my book, when it comes out, hopefully soon, one day. It's about court betrayal. So that's Mr. Ken. And we'll never again Ken, as they say. Oh yes, I was going to say about the blood thing. Yes, when I was with him one day, physically in bed together, I said, "Your arms are all bleeding," and he was rubbing them on the sheets. He'd cut them so that they were bleeding, because his kind of fetish was blood with sex. Like a lot of gladiators, I guess, or a lot of men, a lot of blood and violence and sex. Strange combination. I mean, I was safe. Nothing happened to me, but that did make me feel a little bit odd. So I came out of that relationship. Well, I didn't come out. He died actually, and when he died, all the care home thought I was a very nasty person because he told them that. He projected everything, and his family wouldn't allow me into the funeral. So he's the one in one of my videos that came back to tell me that life is illusion and told me all about the afterlife, which is very interesting. So he's probably paid the price. He is doing his best, but never again came. The second lifetime, how much time have I got left? Oh, the second lifetime, you may or may not believe, I mean, but I was actually King Richard II. Third. Now, I tell you how I strongly feel this. I won't say, because obviously I should be challenged on it, well I have been, but I've had a fascination for him all my life, Richard III. Absolute fascination. And one day I went to my local library where I lived, and they said, "We have a book for you," and it's called Splendour of the Sun, Splendour in the Sun. And it was all I hadn't ordered it. I knew nothing about it. I said, "But it's not mine." "Well, here's your library card if you have ordered it." It's a paperback, very tatty. I think it was out of print at the time. And it's all about King Richard. Now, I find that very, very strange. I didn't order it. I knew nothing about it. And somebody in spirit had got this book for me about Richard III. Isn't that peculiar? So anyway, I did read it. And I could resonate with a lot of it. And then I went to an exhibition in Lincoln where they were showing his prayer book that he took to battle, the last battle, and he was dreadfully betrayed. You may not know the story of King Richard, but he was Plantagenet king, and he was fighting off Henry Tudor, which is the ancestor of our present king and queen. So who could imagine? I'm not really a royalist. So he went into battle of Bosworth. He was terribly betrayed. The people that were supposed to be helping him turned against him, so he did lose the battle and lost his crown. Henry Tudor wasn't actually a king, he wasn't even royalty. So he took up the crown, put it on his head and called himself King Henry VII, I think, yes. So Richard III, I mean, I can't tell you a lot about him. People say, did he this, did he that? I said no, because when I was that personality, that's left behind, if you know what I mean. It was just this book that I read, and we had the funeral over here some years ago, and that was the clincher, because I didn't stop crying all the way through it, and I felt it was really peculiar, because the girl that found his grave in a car park actually in Leicester, she found his grave. He'd been there 500 years, and they dug up the bones and they DNA'd it and all the stuff, and he had a magnificent funeral. I think it was in Lincoln, was it, or Minster? Because he was actually Yorkshire born, but I think he's resting in Leicester. But this funeral was magnificent, and they had the coffin with the prayer book on the top, his prayer book that I actually saw, and I just felt, I sort of saw and felt his soul come back in to the body lying in the coffin. Very emotional. I knew that he'd been joined at last with his body, because he was very cruelly treated when he died. He was stabbed, he fell on a horse and stabbed, and it was absolutely dreadful treatment. And he was quite lovely. He was a good king. He was a very good king. I think he was only 28. So when I watched this, I feel quite tearful now talking about it. When I watched the funeral, and I could see his soul coming in to rest in the coffin, it felt as though there was kind of a completion, really, and it was very beautiful. And it was just after that he came 2 or 3 times to see me. We had little chats. I didn't say, "Did you do it?" And I don't think he did. I think he planned it, but I don't think he, the toys in the tower. This is a bit of a history lesson, isn't it, dear one? I'm sorry about that. Anyway, these are the two. These are the two men in my life. One was a violent emperor. Well, no, he wasn't him. I was him, King Richard. And I think that has carried over a bit because I'm very bossy. My husband would say to me, you sit in that chair like a royalty, bossing us about. You don't lose some of the characteristics, you carry them with you, but of course you improve on them and you make them better and you get rid of other stuff. And it's a very interesting subject actually. So they came to me. Ken is, he did come to me since I've been here in this bungalow, and he kept coming, and I thought, why does he keep coming around me? And somebody said, you've got to forgive him and then he'll move on. Very hard to forgive someone who was very abusive. It caused me so much trouble, but I did, and he left. On that note, perhaps I'll leave you. I'm quite worn out actually, I'm quite worn out. So I hope I haven't worn you out. So there we go, 11 minutes, almost enough, isn't it? So I would like someone to write to me and ask questions and stuff, to make it a bit of a kind of a forum. On a brief note, I will tell you, locally there's a new website open up called Next Door Neighbour, and I thought, I could do a little forum, like a psychic forum, question and answers, because people do have questions, and I know a lot. No, not boasting, but but from a lifetime of experience. And it was awful experience. It only went up yesterday, and within half an hour there were so many nasty remarks on it. I can imagine people that are very sceptical and very nasty. So I can't do this, I don't need to do this. So I closed it down again. It only lasted half a day. So anyway, it's been quite a fix for me to talk about these things today because I don't know anybody else I can share them with. So I do hope you've come through the full moon successfully. It has been quite a challenging moon. Scorpio, Taurus. My daughter's a Scorpio, and we've battled all our lives. Another one. Does it ever end? Does it ever end? So take care, dear ones. God bless for now. Love you lots. Oh dear.